Can I first of all welcome members of the public to today's meeting? And can I also give a warm welcome to Reid, our new Chief Executive, who took up post at the beginning of September. I know she's met quite a few of you, but she probably hasn't met all of you. So I'd like to give Karen an opportunity, because I know she would like to speak for a few minutes.
Thank you, Provost. Elected members, I'm absolutely delighted to have been appointed Chief Exec of Perth Kinross Council. Perth Kinross Council has an excellent reputation as a high-performing council. And I'm very much looking forward to working with a fantastic team here in Perth Kinross, but also every elected member in terms of how we deliver excellence in every area of the council business so that Perth Kinross continues to be the place in Scotland to live life well. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Can I remind councillors and officers to use microphones and request that everyone attending the meeting this afternoon ensures that all mobile phones and other communication devices are in silent mode. Can I also remind everyone that this council meeting will be recorded and be available on YouTube via the council's website following the meeting. Are there any apologies for today's meeting, Gillian?
Thank you, Provost. We have apologies from Councillors Ahern, James, Reid and Wilson. Thank you.
Thank you,
Provost.
Gillian. Yes, Councillor Dugan.
Thank you very much, Provost. Can I ask, Provost, if in your opinion it's unusual for 4 members, fully nearly 20% of the administration not to turn up for full council? And can I ask, Provost, through yourself, if the leader of the council has approved these absences or not?
I don't think that's up to me to ask that question, Councillor Dugan. You could well
if you like.
ask that question yourself before the meeting.
So, Provost, okay, well, I will do that, Provost, but do you think it's unusual for 4 members of the administration, 20% not to turn up for full council?
I have no idea what happens in the past. Right. Are there any declarations of interest in respect of items in the business of agenda today? Councillor Parrott.
Thank you, Provost. Non-financial interest in item 14 as a member of the Harbour Board. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Declare similar interest, Provost. And I would declare the same interest as well, Provost.
Non-financial interest in item 14, Harbour Board.
Thank you. Is that everybody, is it? Good. Item 3, we have notice of motions in terms of Standing Order 39. We have two motions. I'll take the first one, which is the Brexit Impact Assessment. Can I invite Councillor Williamson and Donaldson to speak to the agenda, to the motion?
Thank you very much, Provost, for giving me the opportunity to speak. It is not my intention with this motion to go back over the arguments which were deployed during the EU referendum. This motion makes no assumptions about the merits or otherwise of Brexit. I'm certain that there are those of a view within this chamber who feel that Brexit will present opportunities to our businesses. Just as certainly, there are counter-opinions which predict a negative effect on our economy and prosperity. This motion does not try to untangle this debate. The purpose of this motion is to request from officers an assessment on the likely impact that any form of Brexit will have on Perth and Kinross communities and enterprise. Perth and Kinross has a thriving tourism industry and a developing cultural offering, educational facilities and a whole range of businesses which rely on labour of EU citizens. We have a particular risk with regard to the resilience of our care sector if there was a substantial reduction in EU nationals working here, and we must secure the fullest understanding possible of these risks, and not to do so is simply irresponsible. We are experiencing some of the early effects of Brexit, with an under 20% reduction in the number of EU citizens living in Perth and Kinross already, and many vacancies from the NHS through to local coffee shops have been left unfilled. Many other councils have already started this work. Glasgow City Council hosted a summit and published the Brexit and Glasgow Economy Impacts and Actions, which has been produced with the support of Glasgow City Chamber of Commerce. Edinburgh City Council has formed a working group to examine the impact of Brexit on the economy there, climate and demographics of the EU citizens upon this city. Fife Council has produced an impact assessment upon their council area. So Brexit is high on the agenda for other local authorities and regional bodies in the UK, with a particular focus preparing for what's going to happen post-2020, but it seems not here in Perth and Kinross. There is no doubting that Brexit will have an economic impact upon families, communities and businesses across Perth and Kinross Council. The public here have a right to demand our attention in this regard, and they should know what steps we are taking to prepare Perth and Kinross Council for Brexit. We have an opportunity today with this motion to show that we on this council are serious about Brexit, its effects on our population. I ask Council supports this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Provost. I'd like to thank Councillor Williamson for his speech. I'd just like to add 1 or 2 points. This, above all, is about local issues. There are many national issues we can consider, such as the warnings of Sir Mark Carney, the concerns of the International Monetary Fund, the fears of the auto industry about the supply chain and just-in-time manufacturing, and that applies to many specialist industries here in Scotland. Before we get on to local issues, just one point I do want to make. I found it remarkable that just last week we saw the appointment of a UK food minister, the first since the Churchill administration in the 1950s and the days of rationing. But we're not just dancing with disaster, with a hard Brexit in particular. At a national level, it also has serious implications for the people of Perth and Kinross. So let me just add 2 points to what Councillor Williamson has said. The first is on demographics. We're going to come to that under the medium-term financial plan, but we have seen a sharp fall in the estimates for population growth here in Perth and Kinross just over the last 18 months since I joined this council, now down to 4.5%. And that clearly has implications for us. The second is that any impact assessment has to cover not just the council and its direct employees, it also has to cover the voluntary sector and in particular carers. And I take it from the minute of the Employers Joint Consultative Committee just a week ago that we should recognise their figures are 10.4% of independent home carers in Perth and Kinross are migrant workers. But it's not just those areas. We've also got to look at the whole question of SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises, and also larger companies. I commend the Courier for the article they produced last Saturday. I thought it was absolutely excellent over several pages. But let me turn to one area in particular before I finish. And let's remember that we're meeting here today in what is the old counting hall of General Accident. In some ways, Scotland's first ever multinational company. Genax is now obviously Aviva. Aviva has a major presence in the European marketplace. And a hard Brexit in particular could pose real problems to Aviva in being able to passport and sell its financial products into the European marketplace. So it's vital we have this impact assessment. We need, as a council, to step up to the plate like other councils have. And let's remember, if we agree this motion today, when we come to discuss, and quite a lot of the work has been done already, I've seen several papers from about a year and a half ago, but let's remember that when we discuss it on the 12th of December, there will be only 107 days before Scotland and before the UK as a whole leaves the European Union. So we've got to be prepared, we've got to be ready. I second this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Donaldson. Comments and contributions? Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Provost. I have an amendment I'm of the opinion that it will be counterproductive for this council to engage in lengthy debate and speculation about the possible impacts of the current wide-ranging possible Brexit outcomes. The current good work already ongoing will adequately equip us and residents to be well prepared whatever the outcome. Work ongoing includes, but is not limited to, a migrant worker in the care sector assessment, an economic briefing paper already presented to the Community Planning Partnership, analysis of migration since the EU vote, Brexit employment and workforce implications report to Corporate Management Group in January 2018, participation in Scottish Cities Alliance event with the Scottish Government ministers in May 2018, a second briefing on EU migration since the vote was published on the PKC website only in September of this year, submittal of a PKC response to the UK Government All-Party Group on post-Brexit funding for the nations, again in September of this year, creation of an EU settlement scheme working group, a draft briefing report on Brexit risks to PKC Council and the wider economy presented to the Executive Officer team just yesterday, another Scottish Cities Alliance workshop where officers will contribute, which will be held in this city of Perth on Friday, and last but not least, a local business survey which took the temperature of local business on the matter. So my amendment is as follows, and this text completely replaces the text we have on the paper, that this council will continue both current and planned Brexit assessments in active collaboration with neighbouring local authorities where necessary. Further, that the output from that work will be shared with council and residents in due course. Thank you.
Thank you. Have you got a seconder? Mr Barnacle. Could you distribute the sheets for the members, please?
Yeah, thanks, Provost. We've a long agenda again at full council, and I had not wished to get involved in discussions on Brexit. We could spend the whole afternoon in debate on this matter alone. And I'm not going to respond to some of the things that have been said, some of which I disagree with. But I do support the motion from Councillor Bailey and the independent group and the amendment, for the reasons he stated. It's a very short timescale between this council and the next one. Our officers have got a very heavy workload anyway, and assessment on what? We don't know the terms of any deal. I, like most people in this chamber, want a deal. Don't want a hard Brexit. I don't think there's many people that do. So I think Councillor Bailey is spot on in the approach that we should take. Thank you.
Right. Any comments? Councillor McCall.
Thank you, Provost. I'm really responding to Councillor Bailey's amendment. I attended the Employee Joint Consultative Committee last week when they said that 10.4% of the independent home care sector is from from nationals outside of the UK. And the question I asked at that committee was, what preparedness is the council making for continuation of services to allow our service users around the community and our citizens to continue to access council services if there is a substantial diminishing of the workforce as a result of Brexit. And I think the council has not taken any actions at all to consider what those contingency plans would be. And therefore I support wholeheartedly the motion. The council has remiss on things specifically relating to council service delivery to our citizens, and that is the purpose of the motion here, and I think the motion should be supported and carried by this council as a whole.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Councillor Barrett.
Thanks, Provost. Are we getting a copy of the text of the amendment circulated?
I asked for them, but I haven't got any yet. You got copies made?
I provided a written copy too.
All right. Provost, while those are being circulated, there's a few comments that I do want to make, and that's with regard to some of the ongoing work that is being done in preparedness for Brexit. I attended a meeting at the weekend of the Scottish EU Citizens Advice Project, and spoke at that meeting about the work that was being done with regard to the EU settlement statement of intent. Councillor Parrott was also at that meeting. I was able to outline the fact that we're establishing a working group, as Councillor Bailey mentioned, to consider potential issues relating to the EU settlement scheme. The working group has representation from across council services and third sector partner organisations, and is in the process of developing an action plan to address issues such as communications, information and advice, and engagement with key employment sectors. The action plan includes a one-stop information page on the Council's website. It includes the preparation of frequently asked questions sheets in different language formats. We will be utilising the services of PCAV's EU development workers. They have an EU development worker, a Hungarian and a Bulgarian development worker as well, and we'll be using the groups that they organise to bring EU national groups together as a means and a channel of communication and awareness raising. We'll also be preparing a schedule of advice surgeries for EU nationals who would want advice on their settlement status, and that advice will be provided free of charge through the Ethnic Minorities Law Centre. We're also looking at how we can explore the provision of internet access facilities for people to make settlement applications through libraries and council offices, and also, if the UK government is providing them, then IT terminals for the same purpose. I'm very happy to support the amendment. Thank you.
Councillor Dugan.
Yes, thank you, Provost. We're not happy. I'm very heartened to hear that people have given some very clear thought to the motion and the amendment that's come forward from Councillor Bailey. I would push back a little bit on something that's been said in terms of the amendment, and I hear what Councillor Bailey is saying, but briefings and schemes and events and meetings and papers, this is not what the motion is seeking to achieve. We need a coordinated and comprehensive impact assessment for Perth and Kinross, and it's simply not competent to say that we don't know what Brexit looks like, so we don't know what we're going to plan for. That's like waiting for the car crash to happen before you check everyone's wearing your seatbelt. And it's not the way that I think people in Perth and Kinross would expect an authority with the reputation and the standing of Perth and Kinross Council to approach an issue. And my friend and colleague, Councillor Barnacle, who makes that point, it also sets out that officers are very busy anyway. Well, I know that they are very busy, but Brexit, I'm afraid, is the day job too. It's not an add-on when we get time. This is a very clear and present massive implication for Perth and Kinross and everyone who lives and works and tries to create enterprise and economic opportunity within Perth and Kinross. Brexit is a massive event. There's nothing, regardless of what we think of it, whether we think it's positive or negative, it's a massive event. So to sit back and wait for it to happen to you is completely incompetent, and therefore I thoroughly and wholeheartedly support the motion.
Thank you. Is there any more further comments? Councillor Parrott.
Thank you very much, Provost. I wasn't intending to speak in this session, but all I want to say is to reinforce Councillor Dugan's point that regardless of other merits or demerits, this is the single biggest thing that's happening, arguably, in these islands since 1955 and Suez. And I would urge people to support the motion. We have to be proactive on this. We cannot possibly afford to be reactive. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McDade.
Thank you, Provost. I will be brief, and I wasn't intending to speak either. I think it's a very important issue that has been put on the table by Councillors Williamson and Donaldson. I think it's absolutely right that the Council is considering the impact of Brexit, and I think the amendment does that as well. It is actually asking for the output of the work that is already being undertaken to be brought to the Council and to be shared with the residents of Perth and Kinross. I think that is appropriate, and I agree with what Councillor Dugan just said about this is the biggest thing that's going to happen anytime soon, and I think that is important that we are cognizant of that fact and that we are planning for that. That is ongoing work that is being done by our officers here and across the wider public sector, and I think what is being asked for across the chamber is really that we have updates on the work that is ongoing to reassure ourselves that that planning is underway.
Thank you, Councillor McDade. Councillor Robertson.
Thank you, Provost. All the indications are that following Brexit, we're going to be poorer, both culturally, financially and socially. So I think it's quite right that this council does prepare for what's going to happen to us. And I actually had to say, it brought it home to me yesterday, because I had a lady on the phone, sobbing on the phone, because her husband couldn't get released from hospital because of lack of staff in our care facilities. She said there was no care package available for her. And she says, according to what she's read in the press, and because people from Europe are no longer shown as to be welcome in Scotland or in the UK, thanks to the now current policies on immigration, it's going to be a very sad state of affairs. I think we as a council, it's impossible to prepare fully for Brexit, but I think as much as we can do, we should do. It's just such a sad state of affairs. I personally enjoy being a Scot, and I enjoy being a member of the European Union. And I think we as a country are much richer because of all the people who have come and lived and worked here and contributed to our economy. And that's not just from Europe, that's from other parts of the world as well. So I have to say, I get so depressed about Brexit. It's so sad. It says all the things about Britain that I don't like. So, but I didn't want to speak, but it just so upsets me.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Councillor Lyle.
Thank you very much, Provost, and thank you to Councillor Williamson and Councillor Bailey for their motion and amendment. Just to make you aware that this council is already talking to partners across Scotland to try and analyse the impacts of Brexit, to minimise the impacts of Brexit. I've had discussions and papers in COSLA, in the Scottish Cities Alliance, and with Tayside Neighbours. I'm aware these date back to February 17. I have been communicating with our neighbours up to and including this week. I was communicating with the administration neighbours in Dundee, and one of the subjects mentioned was Brexit. In Tayside, we've formed a working group, and that has already been formed to look into the implications of Brexit. Now, given the motion and the amendment, and they both have my sympathies, and I think that it's only appropriate that when the time is appropriate that we do bring back a paper, but I'm not sure that December is the right timing. So I think going forward we need to address this, obviously, as a responsible council, and we will. So for the time being, I'm supporting the amendment today, but I take due cognizance of what Councillor Williamson has said in his motion.
Thank you, Councillor Lyle. Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Provost. I didn't mean to do that either, but I don't know what I did to make it happen. Right. Thank you, Tom. Right. As I say, I didn't really intend to speak, but I will. I think a key issue in this motion is the fact that the general public here, it's fair to say, did not vote for Brexit. Simply 62% did not, leaving the remainder who did. And therefore the majority are a bit vague. And when you're vague about something that somebody isn't plunging you into, you tend to sort of sit back and let's see what the outcome is. But people are literally, and I know in my industry, same as Mr. Lyle's, the farming industry, they know what side the bread's buttered on, generally speaking. If they don't, they're going to know very soon. And therefore, because they're waiting in some input from those who are pro this farce, they are walking around rather like the proverbial chickens, wondering what's happening next, and waiting at that point. And if we can provide any form of information, not just to farmers by any means, to the whole hospitality industry in particular, the health industry and the farming industry and the general public, if we can provide information by collating it and provide it for them in due course before the actual event happens, it's all to the good. I very much support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Thanks, Provost. After finally catching sight of the amendment, it actually illustrates the problem that we are having. The final sentence, further that the output from that work will be shared with the Council and residents in due course. That could be next April, May, June, after Brexit. It should be what we have, we should be sharing now so people can prepare it for whatever we have. This is wishy-washy, means nothing, and the people of Perth and Kinross will realise it's not worth the paper it's printed on.
Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Provost. Just very briefly, I think it's worth pointing out officially, formally in this chamber, and I'm fairly sure this will be unanimous amongst the members, that EU residents are welcome in Perth and Kinross, absolutely. And I think there was a number of items on the Perth Common Good Fund this morning which illustrates that, and it's nice that as a council we're putting our money where our mouth is.
Thank you. If that's all the comments, I think we'll proceed to the vote. Julian? Oh, sorry, let's sum up. Yeah, I'm nodding, Councillor Williamson. That's okay. Yeah. Right, we'll just move to the vote now then.
Okay, thank you, Provost. Councillors, you have a motion in terms of which are set out on the agenda in front of you in relation to Brexit impact assessment. The motion is by Councillors Williamson and Donaldson. You have an amendment, the terms of which have been circulated by Councillor Bailey, seconded by Councillor Barnacle. The roll call vote in terms of standing orders. So when I call your name, can you please indicate whether you are voting for the motion, for the amendment, or whether you are abstaining? Councillor Anderson.
Motion.
Councillor Bailey.
Amendment.
Councillor Baird. Amendment. Councillor Band.
Motion.
Councillor Barnacle.
Amendment.
Councillor Barrett.
Amendment.
Councillor Braun.
Amendment.
Councillor Brock. Councillor Audrey Coates.
Amendment.
Councillor Harry Coates.
Amendment.
Councillor Donaldson.
Motion.
Councillor Dugan.
Motion.
Councillor Drysdale.
Motion.
Councillor Duff.
Amendment.
Councillor Forbes. Amendment. Councillor Gray.
Motion.
Councillor Illingworth.
Amendment.
Councillor Jarvis. Councillor Ling.
Motion.
Councillor Lyle.
Amendment.
Councillor McCall. Amendment. Councillor McCole.
Motion.
Councillor McDade.
Amendment.
Councillor McEwen. Motion. Provost.
Amendment.
Councillor Parrott. Motion. Councillor Pover. Motion. Councillor Purvis.
Amendment.
Councillor Rebeck.
Motion.
Councillor Robertson. Councillor Sarwar. Councillor Shires. Councillor Simpson.
Amendment.
Councillor Stewart.
Amendment.
Councillor Waters.
Motion.
Councillor Williamson.
Motion.
Thank you, councillors. I have 15 votes for the motion, 21 votes for the amendment. The amendment is therefore carried.
Councillors, we'll move on to the second motion in terms of Standing Order 39. It is the committee structure. So Councillor McDade to motion and brought to amendment.
Thank you, Provost. I'm going to be mercifully short because I've got a cough, so you'll all be delighted. The motion is quite clear, I think, in terms of what we are proposing. We feel that given changes within the council structures this year, it would be appropriate for the housing and the current Housing and Communities Committee and the current Environment and Infrastructure Committees to become the Housing and Environment Committee, similar to the fact that the Council Service was realigned earlier this year to become the Housing and Environment Service. It's appropriate that we continually review our decision-making structures to ensure that they are in line with the needs of the Council and that they are fulfilling the needs of people of Perth and Kinross. And I think that's what we are looking to see, is a parity as well across the membership of the different major themed committees. So I would recommend voting for the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDade. Councillor Brock.
Thank you, Provost. Provost, I am happy to second this motion today. My independent and Scottish Labour colleagues and I believe we need to review the Council's present committee structure to ensure it remains current with the needs of our communities and fits in better with the structures of the Council and the services it provides. We felt last December, following the decision to move considerable additional remits to the Strategic Policy and Resources Committee, has left a number of the other themed committees without a significant role, as they previously had. We feel that Housing and Communities in particular spends considerable time looking at papers to note rather than those for decision. We believe that this is a waste of both councillor and senior officer time. Whilst we do not wish to see less committees overall, we do not wish to see councillors and senior officer time or public money wasted on holding a committee that has very little of strategic importance to discuss. Provost, I hope colleagues across the Chamber will recognise the issues we have raised today and agree that we do need to consider the remit of our committees and how they could fit better in with the work of the Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brock. Any comments or contributions? Councillor Shires.
I have an amendment, Provost.
Sorry?
I have an amendment, Provost.
You have an amendment. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Robertson. Yeah, could you explain your terms of the amendment? Have you all had time to read the amendment? No? Okay, give you another minute. Okay, you all read it now? Councillor Shires.
Thank you, Provost. I'm more than happy to propose this amendment, and in so doing to ask that all members take time to reflect on the importance of the process by which we make decisions in this council chamber. I've had the privilege of being a councillor for over 11 years, and in that time it's fair to say that I've seen quite a lot of changes in the way that the council business is operated. It's right and proper that we continually review the way we make decisions and conduct our business, and Councillors McDade and Brock are right in their assertion that the public sector landscape is ever changing. Where we differ is I believe we ought to sit down and engage in discussion about changes and proposals such as this, which would create a large unwieldy committee potentially taking a whole day and considering dozens of items of business, which would be huge. I would therefore suggest, Provost, a route that would continue the work done last year to review and improve our decision-making process, and that we remit this to the Modernising Governance MOG, with the potential of an additional short-life working group specifically to review committee structures. That would allow detailed discussions about how the work of the Housing and Environment Committee can be scrutinised and taken forward. In addition to what's in the amendment, I would also like to suggest that we take time to reflect the political composition of the council now, and propose that we increase the size of the MOG to 6 elected members, with 1 coming from the Independent Labour Group, to reflect the change across the chamber. My personal view is that we should embrace and welcome change, as we've done over the last years, but the motion that's put forward to full council today in this manner is not the best way to effect that change. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor Shires. Councillor Robertson, you're seconding the motion, the amendment?
I'm happy to second the amendment, Provost. Having been a councillor for a number of years, I know that I've served in nearly every council committee. I'm sure that the conveners of both the Housing Committee and the Enterprise and Infrastructure Committee will be surprised to hear that they don't really perform a valuable function. Well, I think they do. And I think it's important that if committees become overlong, and this is not a criticism of today's long agenda, but if committees become overlong, what happens is, I know from experience, you do get a lack of scrutiny. People get tired and their concentration goes. So I think what Councillor Shears has suggested as an amendment is a sensible way forward. I think we should always be looking at the way we manage things, but having a committee of the length that's been suggested in the motion, to me, it does not make good sense or lead to good governance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Are you okay? I thought you were ready to do something. Yeah, so, can I have some comments or observations? Councillor Lee.
Thanks, Provost. I agree with the sentiments of both sides here, but I think we should be strengthening the committees. I think the member officer working group's a good idea, but I think that the committees themselves should not be enlarged. We have to have more scrutiny. The officers will have to work with the elected members to bring forward papers of more substance, where we have real choices that we can affect, rather than just for noting. We should also be looking at scrutiny of policies that are already enacted. We shouldn't pass a policy and that's it for 5 years. We should be able, if we as elected members are hearing things that there's a difficulty with the policy, it should be able to come back to committee to have a look at it again and refresh it. So I think strengthening the committees we've got and giving them more time to work is the way forward. And I'd like, if the amendment could maybe accept that would be what we could look forward to, short life working group or whatever capacity. I'd like that included in the amendment, please.
Thank you, Councillor Ling. Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Provost. I support the amendment as well, I must say. I do think, in so doing, since the MOG comes into it and it's likely to be discussed again, I do feel that the Environment Committee does affect every single one of us and every single one of our constituents. And therefore, I do believe that the Environment Committee needs to be a bigger committee. And frankly, I'd very much like it being on myself. There is not space for everyone to be on it. But I think if we were a bigger committee allowing more people on it, we would have a broader spectrum governing the whole area, which is important to every single person within the committee.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. Councillor Dugan.
Provost.
No, yours is on.
Touché, well done, Provost.
Yeah, thank you, Provost. Very briefly, just to sort of formalise the views maybe a little bit, if I could, of Councillor Lane, which I share. I agree with the mover of the amendment, and I would formally ask if the mover of the amendment would accept a slight change of wording to her amendment, which is in paragraph 3 on the very last line, where it says, including the decision-making structure, comma, and agenda setting. It's principally a function, clearly, of conveners, Provost, But what I would like the MOG to look at is precisely what some people have mentioned across the chamber, is the amount of box ticking, noting that goes on at committee now, as opposed to actually councillors getting to grips with the issues.
Okay. Any other comments? No. Councillor Shires.
Thank you, Provost. I'm very happy to take on board those suggested additions. Just as in summing up, I kind of broke ranks a bit with my group some time ago about whether we had the motions that were brought forward by members at the start of the meeting or put them at the end. I think this demonstrates exactly it. There's 40 members in this chamber who all have our own opinions about how the council business can best be done to the benefit of our constituents. And I think this type of thing demonstrates that. So very happy to take that on board. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that you summing up? Right. Xander, I've got a slight problem, councillors. It's almost as if I'm frightened to say anything. Get your hands up, because I can hardly see you. We're all nodding our heads, and that's a half hand. Get the hand right up. Then there is no question, and I'll be able to take the questions. Councillor McDade.
Thank you, Provost. Thank you, Provost. I am very pleased to incorporate Councillor Shires and Councillor Robertson's amendment, including the additional amendment from Councillor Dugan into that amendment, and very pleased that we can have this discussion at the MOG, of which our group will be a member, and is a member, I think. And therefore, I think it is important that, as has been raised across the chamber, there are different points that councillors would like brought up about how we can make the governance of the council better for both elected members, for the public, for scrutiny. These are all points that have been raised, the size of the committees, etc. And I think that is an important way forward. And I think we have achieved what we wished from today, which was to get this on the agenda for a discussion, and that has happened. And we're very happy with incorporating the amendment to take this forward to the MOG.
Thank you. Councillor Shires. Councillor Shires. Are you happy with that? Right, okay. Gillian's got a few questions for you.
Oh, no. Sorry.
I've got some questions.
Provost, I wonder if I just could clarify something that Councillor Shires said in her statement in terms of the membership of the Modernising Governance Member Officer Group. It has in fact got 6 members, and it has had for several years. And in fact, Councillor Barnacle is the independent Scottish Labour Group member on the Modernising Governance Member Officer Group. So that was just a point of clarity. Thank you, Provost.
Okay, thank you. Did you something to add?
Well, I'm seeking clarity, Provost, because it seems to me that the amendment and the motion are fundamentally different propositions. I fail to see how the amendment can get incorporated into the motion. They're incompatible.
Are you accepting the amendment, Councillor McDade? You are. Okay.
My understanding is that Councillor McDade is simply accepting the amendment.
And so therefore he's withdrawing his motion?
Yes. Take it.
Well, we're not here for your convenience, Councillor Barrett. We're here to discharge the business of the council appropriately.
I think he's right. It's obvious. It's obvious you're withdrawing your motion.
Yes. My understanding was by accepting the amendment, that then became essentially the motion itself as
Indeed.
Well,
so
as has traditionally been the way.
Carries.
Provost, I'm sorry. The motion says in its opening line that we're going to merge the Housing and Communities Committee with the Environment and Infrastructure Committee. That's not what we're agreeing here. Councillor Shires' amendment's a different thing. Can we not just put it to the vote?
Councillor McDade has clarified with the agreement of Councillor Brock that the motion is withdrawn. Therefore, what's on the table in front of Council is Councillor Shires' amendment, seconded by Councillor Robertson, with the minor amendment about agenda setting put forward by yourself.
Which is what we said.
Is everyone clear that?
Is everybody happy and
everyone
clear? Okay. Shall we move on? Thank you. Thanks, Gillian. Agreed. Make sure we agree. Right, item 4. Item 4, minutes of the previous meetings. Can we agree the minute of the meeting of the Council, 20th of June 2018? Can we agree the minute of the special meeting of the 29th of August? The minutes of the meetings of the committees from the 6th of June to the 12th of September. Can we agree to note the minutes of the Common Good Fund committees of the 20th of June? And the Planning and Development Management Committee of 6th of June.
Happy to put forward for noting, Provost.
Happy to second.
Strategic Policy and Resources Committee, 13th of June.
Move for noting, Provost.
Seconded, Provost.
Local Review Body, 26th of June.
Move for noting, Provost.
Scrutiny Committee, 13th of June.
Move for noting, Provost.
Audit Committee, 27th of June.
Move for noting, Provost.
Second, Provost.
Planning and Development Management Committee, 4th of July.
Move for noting, Provost.
Happy to second, Provost.
Licensing Committee, 12th of July.
Move for noting, Provost.
Happy to second, Provost.
Can we try and speed this up a wee bit, please, folks? Local Review Body, 24th of July.
Move for noting, Provost. In our haste to last time, Councillor Bond didn't have the opportunity to second.
Thank you. Planning and Development Management Committee, first.
Have you got something against me, Provost, today? Happy to second that one, Provost, and the previous one.
Councillor Braun has seconded the Local Review Body.
Great. Planning and Development Management Committee, 1st of August.
Move for noting, Provost.
Happy to second, Provost.
Thank you. Local Review Body, 21st of August.
Move for noting, Provost.
Thank you. Housing Committee, Communities Committee, 22nd of August.
Move for noting, Provost.
Happy to second, Provost, again.
Thank you. Lifelong Learning Committee, 22nd of August.
Happy to second, Provost.
Licence Committee, 23rd of August. Planning and Development Management Committee, 29th of August.
Move for noting, Provost.
Happy to second, Provost.
Enterprise and Infrastructure Committee, 5th of September.
Move for noting, Provost.
Second, Provost.
Strategic Policy and Resources Committee, 12th.
Seconded, Provost.
Scrutiny Committee, 12th of September.
Move for noting, Provost.
Happy to second, Provost.
Thank you. Right. Item 6, Audit Accounts 2017-18 and the Annual Audit Report. Can I invite Stuart Mackenzie, Head of Finance, to introduce the report.
You will notice I am not Stuart Mackenzie. I am going to introduce the first part of the report, which is primarily dealing with the overview, and Stuart will deal with the numbers, so it's a bit of a double act.
Well,
Councillors, audited accounts and annual report are a central part of the Council's reporting and governance framework. The scope of the audit includes, but is much wider than financial statements. This is the second consecutive year that KPMG's independent audit has highlighted the strength of the Council's financial management, scrutiny and governance arrangements. The Council within the report is assessed under 4 themes, with key findings as follows. In terms of financial management, our auditors consider the financial management to be strong, with generally effective budgetary control, which facilitates robust scrutiny of the Council's financial position. In terms of financial sustainability, the Council is financially sustainable in the short term, with well-monitored plans to ensure longer-term financial balance. In respect of governance and transparency, we consider the Council to have high standards of governance and accountability, and its scrutiny is effective. Members robustly challenge management with a clear focus on the communities and citizens they represent. And in respect of value for money and improvement, the Council has appropriate arrangements for achieving value for money, and option appraisals and business cases are developed to support key decisions. So a lot of good comment within the report, but significant challenges are ahead, but I think as a Council we are well placed to face them. So with that, I'll hand over to Stuart, who will go into the numbers in a bit more detail.
Thank you, Mr Valentine. I am Stuart McDade. I suspect I've been doing a little bit this afternoon. Good afternoon, Council. The audited annual accounts 2017-18 are subject to scrutiny and approval by the Audit Committee on the 26th of September. Excuse me, I just lost my notes. The committee also took the opportunity to discuss the annual report with our external auditors at that meeting. The auditors have issued an unqualified audit opinion on the financial statements for 2017-18. A number of adjustments were identified through the audit process, the most significant of which, in terms of value, was an increase in the Council's net pensions liability. None of these adjustments, however, impact upon the level of resources available to the Council, nor the Council's financial performance in 2017-18. As noted within the Auditor's annual report, the Council maintains a strong balance sheet with net assets of £558 million and uncommitted reserves at the 31st of March 2018 of approximately £12 million, or 3.6% of a net revenue budget. The preparation of the annual accounts is a significant task, and I would take this opportunity, if I may, Provost, to thank colleagues from across the Council, as well as my own team, for their support. Happy to take questions, Provost.
Thank you, Stuart. Any questions on the report? Councillor Lane.
Thanks, Provost. In Appendix 6 on page 49 of the KPMG audit report, it sets out an action plan detailing 6 recommendations to improve the financial management of the Council. 4 of these are classed as material observations in the auditor's view. These observations centre around asset valuations, revenue and capital monitoring, and IT controls, all of which are obviously key areas for the Council. Can I ask for assurances that all of these recommendations have been acted upon as a matter of priority in order that any apparent shortcomings are removed?
Stuart.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Thank you, Provost. Just for clarity, the auditors use 3 ranking measures in terms of the significance attached to actions. Grade 1, which is a significant action, which they consider to be business critical. Grade 2 is material, and Grade 3 is minor. So the actions which Councillor Lane has addressed are a combination of Grade 2 material and Grade 3 minor. And all of the actions have a management response, and all of them will be acted upon. And the auditors follow that up in the following year's audit report.
Okay.
I have another question, if that's okay. If there's nobody else wanting to come forward.
Okay, just a quick one then.
It is actually. Throughout the management commentary, I'll not go into it in detail, is the commentary on each of the services references is frequently made to staff underspend and staff slippage. I'm concerned about the potential impact of staff shortages on services and, importantly, on the staff well-being themselves. Can we receive assurances that any staff shortages are being fully and actively addressed, and that the Council staffing levels are currently and will remain adequate to deliver services without jeopardising staff well-being?
Stuart, can you answer that? Jim.
Thank you, Provost. Thank you, Councillor Lane. We link our budget activities to our staffing levels and to what we carry out on the ground, and we review that every year through the budget process. So you have my assurance that we are looking at staffing levels. We do have a built-in level of slippage every year, and we are delivering on that level of slippage, but we are also tailoring the staffing resource that we have to the activities that we carry out.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Provost. Page 22 of the audited accounts contains Auditor's recommendation number 5 about outstanding key policies which have not been updated as previously agreed to strengthen prevention and detection of fraud. Can I ask what level of risk the outstanding updates to these policies provides?
Stuart or Jim? Stuart this time.
Thank you, Provost. Apologies, Councillor Barrett. We can having a little debate with you guys. Be nice to take this. As part of the audit process, the auditors identified a number of policies where some of the references are out of date or maybe haven't been updated as timely as they could be. There's nothing to suggest in their assessment, or indeed in mine, that that presents any greater risk of fraud, but it is a piece of work we need to catch up on.
Okay. Any other questions? No. Councillor Lyle, can I ask you to move the report?
Thank you very much, Provost. Can I say before I start, Councillor Band, your microphone's on. Thank you. Provost, I welcome this annual report from our external auditors, KPMG. It contains independent confirmation that we have sound processes to manage our finances and that our approach to budgeting supports effective financial management. It also states that the Council continues to demonstrate high standards of governance and accountability. I would like to place on record my thanks to all our officers across the Council for their continued excellent management of our finances. The report from KPMG further underlines our reputation for strong and prudent financial management and will continue to ensure that the Council is well placed to meet the difficult challenges ahead. Provost, I'm happy to move the report.
Thank you, Councillor Lyle. Councillor Barrett, second the motion. Report.
Thank you, Provost. The audit dimension conclusions make for reassuring reading. They include effective financial management controls, a satisfactory budget setting process and good financial management. Previous councils' underspends are not considered to have a clear negative impact on service delivery through the use of budget flexibility, which enables resource to reach its intended outcomes. I'm keen to see what proposals are to be brought forward with regard to recommendation 3 regarding setting predetermined variance levels at which budget variances are explained through monitoring reports. It's good to see the preparation of the medium-term financial plan is recognised by the auditors as an example of good practice, alongside the auditors' positive comments about the budget review process and the practice of sharing information across all parties and groups, both administration and opposition, with officer support provided to groups to assist understanding and the impacts of delivering budget savings. Provost, this process does not get any easier as resources are cut while demands for services increase. In this administration, we're committed to sound financial planning and an approach that will continue to deliver financial sustainability even in the face of a funding gap of over £50 million. In the auditor's view, Perth and Kinross Council demonstrate a clear assessment of the future savings needed and that these have been reported to councillors on a consistent basis and appropriate action taken in approving the transformation programme designed to deliver the required savings, and that plans are well monitored to ensure long-term financial balance. Again, the auditor recognises that the Council has a strong reserves position, providing comfort that it can support transformation and manage unexpected overspends in the short term. Prudence is also demonstrated in the Council's approach to planning and budgeting for our employees' pay, factoring in pay awards and future pay awards in line with the Scottish Government's public sector pay policy. Provost, in the auditor's opinion, the Council exhibits strong member and officer leadership. The report recognises the changes in the senior management team and the number of new councillors, at 22 being more than half of the Council. The auditor's comments regarding attendance at members' development sessions are encouraging that sufficient attend, but also serve as a warning to councillors about the importance that is placed on the members' development programme and demonstrating that we are actively seeking the key learning knowledge to assist in the effective leadership of the Council. I'm happy to second, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Are there any comments on the report? No, do we agree? Thank you. Item 7, the Audit Scotland's reports, local government in Scotland. I'm just a bit frightened in case of White and Jim. It might be Stuart that jumps up.
Thank you, Provost. Councillors, the paper before you sets out the challenges and opportunities facing this council going forward and how this council needs to respond to those challenges. While we show strong performance in many areas, there are areas where we still need to move forward. In particular, the report identifies the need for clear strategies and better long-term planning in order to deliver the council's priorities in a time of reducing resource. It also recognises that the incremental savings we have made over the years will not be enough to deal with the challenges going forward, and we need to consider radical programmes of transformation and collaboration in order to ensure future service delivery. It also points out that we need to consider how we equip our people, whether those people be members, officers or communities, to best deliver services in a changing landscape. As part of this, we need to look at how we involve citizens in identifying and shaping the services which are important to them, and we need to consider how we empower those communities to harness the untapped resources which lie within them. The report also demonstrates the need to be able to evidence the difference that public bodies' actions are making in people's lives, and not rely simply on anecdotal evidence or the fact that we do something because we have always done it. As I said at the beginning, this council is well used to dealing with challenges and are sector leading in many of our improvement areas. However, what has got us here will not be sufficient for the road ahead. And while we are already considering many of the areas and actions identified in the report, it provides a focus on the areas where we still need to improve and will inform the development of our future plans. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jim. Are there any questions on the report? Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Provost. My question was in relation to section 4.1.1 and 4.1.2 of the report relating to local action partnerships and the Community Investment Fund. There's reference to the Council working towards meeting the Scottish Government's target of 1% of Council budgets being allocated in this way. And I think that relates to the earlier part of the paragraph, which is to do with participatory budgeting. I wonder if it would be useful just to clarify whether the Scottish Government / COSLA target, A, has ever been agreed by the Council, but whether it relates to just participatory budgeting or wider community choices as a 1% target. And as a supplementary, I think I asked at a previous committee meeting about if we had a calculation of how close we were to that, taking into account all of the different community community-directed spend that the Council engages in at the moment, and if we had an update on that figure.
Thank you, Provost. Thank you, Councillor Stewart. I can get that figure for you. As you say, the PB figure is only part of that percentage, and we're also looking at what else would be included. So it's really any area where the community have had an influence, whether that's in how we look at roads programmes, etc., going forward, which is an area that we have discussed. That would all then come into the 1% target and be measured against it. But can get an update on that figure and get it around council members.
And just the point about whether that was actually an agreed target of council or whether we were just falling in step with the Scottish Government COSLA point, whether the council had ever formally taken a decision to reach that 1%, to seek to reach that 1% target itself.
That 1% was agreed by the Community Planning Partnership at the time that the local action partnerships were set up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Dugan.
Thanks, Provost. It's paragraph 5.1 where Audit Scotland go on to say what councils should do, and we should, if you'll bear with me, establish robust change strategies and develop realistic plans for transforming services, incorporate effective leadership and good governance, robust options appraisals, strong financial management, properly supporting resources plans. The list goes on, Provost. There's two in there that I think this council in particular can hold its head up high on, and those are strong financial management and effective workforce planning. I would respectfully suggest that almost every other one in there, there's some room for improvement in Perth and Kinross, and I wondered if officers might want to suggest how we take that forward with councillors in the years ahead.
Thank you, Provost. Thank you, Councillor Dugan. There are areas across the council where we need to improve, and I think that all officers recognise that, and as part of our strategy going forward, we will be looking at all of these areas, and we can't even be complacent about the areas that we are strong in at this moment in time, because we need to be able to anticipate how that might change going forward. So we are working on all areas that have been identified to produce new plans that we bring back to council in due course.
Okay. Councillor Lyle. Oh, there was no hands up, sorry.
Thank you, Provost. Whilst moving this paper, I would state that Mr Valentine has pointed out the areas where we need to improve in order to take this council forward. But I would remind everyone that this is a high-performing council with a strong track record of continuous improvement. I have no doubt with the necessary commitment and input from all involved, we can continue to enhance the life experiences of those living, working, and also visiting our council area. I'm happy to move the paper.
Thank you, Councillor Lyle. Councillor Barrett.
Thanks once again, Provost. Taken in conjunction with the previous report and annual accounts, the Audit Scotland reports reinforce the requirement for robust transformational change and delivery against a very uncertain and risky future where local government faces significant challenges through disproportionate cuts to unprotected areas of the public sector spend because of the Scottish Government's spending priorities for health, the police, early learning, childcare and attainment. Whilst medium-term financial planning has been embedded in local councils for years, the Scottish Government have only just produced their first medium-term financial framework and are looking to refine that process. I hope that that leads to a process of greater scrutiny of their medium-term financial planning and the financial plight of local government in general. It has, however, provided a clearer picture of the financial challenge that we face to the unprotected budgets, i.e. all councils' non-teaching functions facing real terms reductions in funding of up to 16% and our share of the Scottish budget falling from 44% to 37%. Provost, the question and key issues raised by Audit Scotland's reports chime with the Council's key priorities in terms of the transformation programme, robust monitoring, community empowerment and engagement to develop community capacity and grow community resilience, and a clear strategic direction and focus on outcomes delivered in partnership in a more systematic manner, and I'm happy to second. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Do you agree with the report? Sorry, comments. Beg your pardon.
I'll frame this as a comment rather than a question. I'm sorry for taking up too much of your time, Provost.
It's okay, you've got plenty of time, Councillor Lane.
It's page 249, 3.1.8, where it states evaluate the impact of some significant budget cuts. I would hope that that evaluation has taken place before we make these budget cuts, while we're making them and after we make them. And I would also hope that we could add at the end of the sentence and take mitigating actions if necessary if these cuts were making too much hardship on the members of our community.
Any other comments? Do we agree with the report? Thank you. Item 8, Perth Kinross Council Annual Performance Report. Can I invite Reid, our new Chief Executive, to introduce our first report?
Thank you, Provost. Councillors, this report sets out our annual performance against the Council's 5 strategic priorities, and it outlines a number of key achievements over the course of 2017-18, and these have been set against a backdrop of unprecedented change, challenge and, of course, opportunity. These include externally validated examples of good practice, case studies from a number of community-based initiatives, and indeed set out what our customers are telling us about the quality of our services. I'd like to particularly draw your attention to the overall performance in the context of key performance indicators. 19, so that's 45%, are noting improvement. 10, which is 24%, are steady. 3 require further action, and I can assure councillors action has been taken. And 10, where we're currently working on developing more holistic and tighter range of indicators to tell us about our performance. These indicators and the performance in front of you today support our 2018-19 priorities of securing sustainable inclusive economic growth, addressing our changing demographics, reducing the impact of poverty in families and communities and supporting those most vulnerable, evolving the way we work with communities, working more collaboratively and further transforming our services. Provost, officers will be very happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Any questions on the report? Councillor Braun, Councillor McCall.
Thank you, Provost. Just a question on page 300 of the report. Number of attendees at Show Races and the Red Card events. We had a peak in 2015-2016 and then we seem to have had a drop since. I just wonder if there's anything we could do to increase numbers.
Thank you. Councillor McCall? Sorry. Sorry, I got thrown by. Lorna's going to answer the question.
It was the fact that the numbers have dropped since the peak in 2015-2016.
Yes.
And I just wonder if we could do anything to encourage numbers back up again.
Yes, there's a range of activities that we have organised over the years, and I think one of the tasks is to evaluate the sorts of activities that we've undertaken, the effectiveness of those, and to make sure that there's different types of events that we can run each year. So the numbers will go up and down depending on the sorts of areas that are identified by officers and members of the community, according to some of the incidents that are coming to light. So I think we always want to encourage as many people to attend these events and to make them as widespread and encouraging more people to attend. So we should see the figures increase.
Could I just have a quick supplementary? I'm sure members like myself will find racism in its all forms abhorrent, but I'm sure also members will have noted that there has been a steady rise in recent weeks of anti-Semitism in this country. It is a concerning element to many people. I've had emails come through who are concerned about this. Concerned because it's happening within living memory of the Holocaust. Concerned because it's happening in a country that played such an important part in the liberation of Nazi Germany. Could I ask if council officers could just note this is happening and that they are aware of it? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Provost. It's actually regarding 273, which is page 7 of the report. I'm always very interested in the best start in life and the information coming across, but I think it's the 4th paragraph down, the proportion of children who reach all their development milestones. I'm delighted that we're looking at 85% of children. I'm just wondering what that level is now.
Who's taking that?
Thank you, Councillor McCall. The target is one that is set by Scottish Government and we're currently sitting at 81%.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dugan.
Thank you, Provost. It's on page 285. It's the amount of tourism generated revenue, which shows a really very impressive growth between 2013 and 2017, almost 50%. I'm sure we'll all welcome this. Can I ask, Provost, what officers' view is of why this growth has accelerated in this way, and how much of it is due to actions that we've taken positively as a local authority, and how much of it is the organic industry acting independently of those actions. Thank you.
Can I ask, David Livingston's come out.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Dougan. It's not a simple answer. A lot of the increase over the past few years, and particularly the last couple of years, is principally about an increase of overseas visitors to Scotland and this region, and that's certainly assisted by the current exchange rate differences, which is making a holiday here significantly more attractive. However, we've put a considerable amount of effort in over the past few years to work with industry to help them promote the area better. So we've supported the establishment, for example, of Perthshire Meetings, which is the private sector-led consortium of event providers to win more business tourism in particular. We've also continued to support Perthshire Tourism. We've just recently launched the Scotland's Tay Country awareness campaign and branding to encourage more tourists to consider basing themselves in this part of the world. So it is a combination of those kind of macro factors around Scotland itself becoming a more attractive destination, but the council certainly still playing its part in supporting the private sector to promote and grow the industry locally.
Happy with that? Yep. Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Provost. I'm on page 299 of the overall pack, or page 33 of the actual report. In the top left corner there's a graph of percentage of municipal waste collected that is recycled or composted. I wonder if we could know whether that percentage is calculated by weight or by volume, and then I have a follow-up once we have that answer.
Barbara, can you do that?
Yeah. Sorry, what page was that, Councillor Bailey? 299. My understanding it's by weight.
Okay. Thank you. And then a follow-up observation, if I may. It's good to see the steady increase in what we are recycling and composting, and therefore not putting to landfill. But I'll observe that it doesn't, at face value, look like the smaller green bins that were introduced a couple of years ago have really moved the needle, to use an Americanism there. But I'll save that observation for another day because I don't want to take us off the agenda for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Councillor McDade.
Thank you, Provost. I too welcome the tourism figures that Councillor Dougan just alluded to earlier, and my figure is actually connected to that in terms of do the council officers believe that part of the tourism rise has been enabled essentially by improved broadband, which has been a significant increase from around 37% in 2013-14 to 84% last year, and I've got a question as well, which is what is the current figure, if we have that, in terms of properties enabled across Perth and Kinross?
I don't have any evidence to suggest that the tourism growth is directly influenced by broadband availability. That improvement across Wi-Fi broadband availability is probably happening across most of Scotland, and therefore it wouldn't explain necessarily why tourism growth in Perth and Kinross is particularly growing. But I think it's a contributory factor. I think it's a fair point to make. In terms of current improvements in broadband, we're starting to see a tailing off. So I don't have the exact figure of where it currently is, but what we're now left with are the most difficult to reach properties, and that's where the current Scottish Government programme, the R100 programme, has given that commitment to give the minimum 24 megabit speed by 2021. But I can certainly get the current figure, but it certainly will now start to be tailing off, as I said.
Okay. Any further questions? Councillor Purvis.
Thank you, Provost. Could I ask a question on local area partnerships? I previously spoke at a full council meeting about the need to ensure strong governance arrangements around local action partnerships, particularly given the ambition to get to 1% of the council's spend being done through community choices. Since then, there still hasn't been, I understand the reasons given for not wanting to give a standard constitution that all local area partnerships have to adopt, and instead guidance has been issued. But I do think that we should be looking at whether or not we could be requiring local action partnerships to have a constitution or a terms of reference, or something that ensures that this public money that is being spent, that there is accountability behind that in terms of how those decisions are made. And I would like to ask if this could be taken into consideration, given the review that's going to be going on following the recommendations from the What Scotland Works report, because I don't think it's good enough just to say that it's up to action partnerships, and if they choose not to adopt some form of terms of reference or governance document, that's it. Thank you.
Do you want to do that, John? Thank you, Provost. Thank you, Councillor Purvis. Yes, the question of governance around action partnerships is absolutely crucial in the longer term, but in the short term we were more concerned about getting the partnerships up and running and getting people not only to turn up but to come back to future meetings. So we will tighten up the governance. That will come out of the What Scotland Works report and the review. But it's been, a lesser concern. We decided to take that risk until we had the partnerships up and running and in place. And I think now that they're starting to gel, we can tighten up the governance structure in the background.
Okay. Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Provost. The question I have is on page 296 of the papers. It's in relation to the previous programme for glass recycling, which saw a sizeable donation to the children's hospices across Scotland. But that was completed last year, and I wondered if it's still continuing and which charity, if so, we are supporting.
Barbara?
Yes, it is still continuing. My understanding it's still Chas, but I will come back to you on that to confirm that.
Okay. Any other questions? No. Can I ask Councillor Lyle to move the report, please?
Thank you, Provost. The Council's annual performance report demonstrates the achievements of committed individuals and teams across all our services to meet our 5 strategic priorities. It highlights excellent areas of performance, showing the positive impact services have had on individuals and